The night sky outside his glass office glowed with city lights when Ava finally found the courage to speak. Her hands trembled as she whispered, "Ryan, I'm pregnant." For a brief second, she saw the softness in his eyes, the warmth that had once made her believe he would protect her from everything. But then, just as quickly, it vanished. His shoulders stiffened, and his expression turned distant, almost mechanical. "Ava," he said slowly, his tone too calm for what he was about to confess. "I cheated on you." The words hit her harder than any storm ever could. Ava stood frozen. Her breath caught between disbelief and heartbreak. Her mind tried to make sense of what she heard, searching his face for some trace of regret. But there was none. He turned away, already opening his laptop, as if her world had not just shattered in front of him. "You deserve someone better," he added flatly, like a closing statement. Tears filled her eyes, but she refused to let them fall in front of him. She left his office without a word, her heart breaking with every step. Outside, the rain soaked through her coat, but she barely felt it. She had come to share life-changing news, and instead she walked away with her entire world collapsing inside her. That night, as thunder echoed in the distance, Ava made a silent promise to her unborn child. If no one else would stand beside them, she would. She looked out at the dark sky and whispered, "We'll make it." Even without him. She had no idea that promise would change everything years later, when fate brought them face to face again. The next morning, sunlight crept through the curtains of Ava's small apartment, but it brought no warmth. Her mind replayed his words over and over until they no longer sounded real. Every dream she had built with him, every late-night talk, every promise whispered between tired smiles, was gone. She touched her stomach, tears spilling silently. There was a heartbeat inside her that didn't deserve to carry the weight of another's betrayal. She wiped her face and whispered, "You'll never need him. You'll have me." Days turned into weeks, and the pain refused to fade. Her resignation letter sat folded on her table, but before she could even send it, she received an email from HR. Employment terminated, effective immediately. No explanation, just silence. Ryan had made sure she was erased from the company and his world in one clean move. With little savings and no one to turn to, Ava packed her belongings into 2 suitcases and left the city that had both built and broken her. She boarded a late-night bus to a small town she found on a map, somewhere no one knew her name. The journey felt endless, each passing mile a reminder that she was leaving behind not just him, but the version of herself that believed in happy endings. When she stepped off the bus, the air smelled of rain and pine. The town was quiet, the streets nearly empty, yet something about it felt safe. She rented a small room above a bakery, where the owner, a kind elderly woman, offered her tea without questions. For the first time in weeks, Ava slept without nightmares. She didn't know what the future held, but one thing was clear. Her story was far from over. And someday, the man who broke her heart would face what he left behind. Weeks passed in the small town, and Ava began to find pieces of herself she thought were gone forever. She woke early every morning to the smell of fresh bread from the bakery below, and spent her afternoons typing away on her old laptop, taking freelance writing jobs that barely paid enough to survive. But every time she felt her babies move, she found strength she never knew she had. Her body was tired, her future uncertain, yet her heart held a quiet fire. She told herself that one day she would build a life where her children would never feel unwanted. When her belly grew heavier, she visited a local clinic. The doctor smiled at the monitor and said softly, "2 heartbeats. Twins." Ava's eyes filled with tears, not of fear but of determination. 2 lives meant twice the reason to fight. She named them in her mind, Hope and Grace. She didn't know why, but the names felt like promises. Life wasn't easy. Some nights she went to bed hungry so she could save for the hospital bills. There were days she doubted she could keep going, but then a kind nurse offered her extra vitamins, and the bakery owner slipped bread into her bag without asking for payment. The kindness of strangers became her quiet armor. As months went by, the town began to know her, not as the woman who ran away, but as the girl who never gave up. And somewhere deep inside, she began to believe that maybe, just maybe, the heartbreak that once destroyed her had led her to the place where real healing would begin. She didn't know it yet, but fate was slowly preparing a moment that would make Ryan Hale face the truth he had buried and the love he thought he could live without. The night Ava went into labor, the town was wrapped in a storm. Wind rattled the windows, and thunder rolled like distant anger. She gripped the edge of her bed, breath breaking into shallow gasps. Alone, frightened, yet fierce, she whispered through the pain, "It's okay, my loves. We'll make it." The old woman from the bakery called an ambulance, and within minutes, Ava was rushed to the small county hospital. Every contraction tore through her, but her mind held on to one image, 2 tiny faces waiting to meet her. Hours later, as dawn pushed through the clouds, 2 cries filled the sterile room. Ava wept silently as the nurse placed both babies in her arms. One had Ryan's deep brown eyes, the other his gentle smile. It felt unfair, almost cruel, how much they resembled the man who had broken her. But when their small fingers curled around hers, she knew that their faces didn't remind her of him. They reminded her of what she had survived. The months that followed were a blur of sleepless nights, bottles, and lullabies. She worked from home, balancing deadlines with diaper changes, exhaustion with devotion. She never complained. She was no longer the woman who begged for love. She was a mother who built strength from heartbreak. One morning, as she walked through the market with a stroller, a stranger handed her a flyer for a community writing contest. The prize was small, but something inside her sparked. She wrote her story, not about betrayal, but about resilience. When her piece won, her name appeared in a local newspaper, catching the attention of someone she never expected. A businessman visiting the town recognized the name Ava Carter, the same name Ryan Hale had once erased from his company. And in that instant, fate quietly began to turn. Ryan Hale sat in his penthouse office surrounded by success, but haunted by silence. Every deal he won, every handshake he made felt hollow. His empire had grown, yet his heart carried a strange emptiness that no luxury could fill. At night, he dreamed of Ava, the way she laughed, the way she looked at him like he was more than the man the world saw. He told himself it was guilt, but deep down it was something heavier. He had walked away from the only person who saw his soul. One afternoon, while waiting for a meeting, he flipped through a business magazine left on the table. His eyes froze on a headline, Local writer wins hearts with story of strength and motherhood, Ava Carter. The name struck him like lightning. For years he had tried not to search for her, afraid of what he might find. But there she was, smiling in a small photo, holding 2 toddlers with matching brown eyes. His breath caught. They looked like him. Ryan's chest tightened as realization hit. He read the article twice, every word like a mirror reflecting his mistakes. She had rebuilt herself from the ashes he left behind. She had done everything he failed to do. Loved, nurtured, and created something meaningful. That night, for the first time in years, Ryan couldn't sleep. The city lights outside his window blurred as regret filled his heart. He knew he couldn't undo the past, but he could no longer pretend she didn't exist. The next morning, he called his assistant and said softly, "Find her." He didn't know what he would say or if she would even listen. But somewhere deep inside he knew one thing. He wasn't searching for forgiveness. He was searching for the pieces of himself he had lost when he let her go. A week later, Ryan arrived in the same small town Ava had once fled to. His driver parked near the hospital, and for the first time in years, he felt nervous. The building was ordinary, but his heart raced as if he were walking into a battlefield. Inside, he asked about Ava Carter. The nurse's smile softened. "Room 214, she said. "But please be gentle. She's been through a lot." He didn't ask what that meant. His chest was already tight enough. When he stepped into the room, time stopped. Ava sat by a hospital bed, her hair tied loosely, exhaustion written on her face. Yet she still carried the quiet strength he remembered. On the bed lay one of her daughters, pale but breathing steadily. The other child clung to her mother's arm, curious eyes wide open, the same eyes Ryan saw every time he looked in the mirror. For a long moment he couldn't speak. All the power, all the arrogance, all the control he once had vanished. He whispered, "Ava." She turned slowly, shock flashing across her face. Her expression hardened. "What are you doing here?" she asked quietly. Ryan's throat tightened. "I saw your story. I had to see you. And them." Ava's voice shook but held steady. "You lost that right a long time ago." He stepped closer, tears threatening to fall. "I know," he said, voice trembling. "But please, let me make it right." For the first time, Ava saw something real in his eyes. Regret. Not the shallow kind men use to escape guilt, but the kind that breaks a person from the inside. She looked down at her daughters, then back at him. "They don't need your money," she whispered. "They need a man who shows up." He nodded, emotion choking his words. "Then I'll start now." The silence that followed wasn't forgiveness, but it was hope. A fragile, flickering hope that maybe, just maybe, redemption had finally found its way back to them.